Right, thank you. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Venues Events and Marketing Committee meeting. We will start by having noting any declarations of any disclosure opinion. If there's any, please do let us know. If not, as we follow through the agenda, you're always welcome to come and point them up as they come up. Make a notice that usually who shares is our Mayor and Councillor Mark Robinson is absent today. And in his absence as a vice chair, he's asked me to share the meeting. So that's why I'm here today. Next point, any apologies for absence? I don't know if the secretary has any apologies noticed other than Councillor Robinson, please.
No, just Kingsley Robinson, no others. Thank you.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So next point in the agenda is the minutes, is to confirm the minutes from the 10th of March from this committee and to confirm there's a recorded, true, accurate record of what we've done and discussed on the previous meeting. So I know that the meetings have been shared before, so I'm assuming that everybody had a chance to look at them. And if everybody's okay with them, we can then approve the minutes. If there's any points you'd like to raise, please do let us know. Feel free to intervene and point out any errors or any discrepancies. If not, I'll propose that we accept the minutes and record them. Everybody okay with accepting the minutes? I'm assuming that.
Yep, I'm happy.
Yeah.
All right, lovely, thank you. The next point in the agenda for today is action from previous meetings. And this would be to receive a report on the issue of the global key dates calendar that we've been discussing in previous meetings. And we are now requiring a decision which key dates are going to be adopted as part of this calendar. So I'll pass it on to the VEM officer to discuss this point. If you want to present, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I'll take, there's two actions from the previous meeting. The first is the global calendar. The second is an update on the Rotunda posters. But the global calendar first, we did talk about this at the last meeting and extended a deadline to the end of March. I did receive notification from 3 councillors, one of which was particularly adverse to putting any more dates into actual events. He thinks the civic diary is quite full in any event. There were a couple of councillors that have suggested additional dates to this committee's councillors that have offered up dates in the past, and we can put those into a calendar to observe and support through our social media and website channels. The chair, Councillor Robinson, also put forward a calendar of events for actual flag raising days and events. And if we were to go with these, if the committee is to approve the suggestion, we would have to go back to Civic, who will become Heritage and Town events, because these actually are events. There's more to it than just posting on social media to recognise and support. And I know the chair of that particular committee is keen for us to make sure that it goes back for due consideration. But so I think people have had a look at these, and so the first element of this item is really to suggest to councillors, is it the appetite for this committee to consider and refer to Heritage and Town events to take this on board. So open to councillors at this point.
Right, thank you for that. I have hands up from Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a couple of questions. On the one, my favourite one, the International Holocaust Day, you say we're going to fly the flag at half-mast. Will Civic sort out the arrangements? Because I think we should have people present by the peace thing. Would this go to Civic for them to sort out how we actually celebrate this day?
Yes, it would, Councillor Harvey, and that's the point of this actual item within the agenda. If we were to suggest that this happens, clearly there are additional flag raising events that's been suggested by Councillor Robinson. So the Holocaust Day is one I know that you have suggested from the outset. So I think if you wish it to include raising the flag, whether at half-mast or not, it would have to go back to Civic. But it's a case of, should we send the whole of these calendar events to Civic to discuss, or should we say we don't really want to add any additional flag raising events to our current Civic list?
Right,
Thank you.
Take Councillor Cannams next.
Yeah, my point, Dave, with all the flags, obviously you've shown the pictures of the flags, and this would be ending up being a cost to Civic. So I think if you agreed, you'd have to then recommend it to Civic, because you know, we haven't got all them flags. We've gone through our flags and we haven't got all these flags.
I thank you for that, Brenda. Councillor Jeremy next.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I looked through the list and I was quite happy with what was there. I thought it was fairly proportionate, sort of spread out throughout the year, so I think that's good. The only one really I didn't quite understand, and perhaps sort of wondered why it was there, was the Prince Charles birthday in November. I mean, obviously, I understand why we've got the Queen's birthday in April. I think that's entirely appropriate. But I haven't seen, maybe I've just missed it, but, you know, I haven't seen other people particularly doing anything for Prince Charles's birthday in November. So I just thought that was maybe one that might have been a bit sort of one too many, but there may be a good reason for it. But I thought I'd ask the question.
Okay, thank you for that, Terry. Mr. Brooks, would you like to fill in the reason why that's in there, or is just that it's been suggested by another councillor, I would assume?
It's been suggested by Councillor Robinson, and unfortunately he's not with us today to support that suggestion.
Okay.
And if I may, I would also throw into the mix that I can understand some of our famous sons and associated heritage figures, such as the Julep Singh, Glazer Minns, etc. But there is also another one there that I think we're treading very muddy waters if we include, and that's the White Ribbon Day on the 25th of November. And that's certainly, it's all about domestic abuse and things like that. And although it's a very laudable cause, that's something completely different. So if we went down that route, then we could be inundated with, well, this is a laudable cause that also requires that kind of recognition. So I think, just coming back to Councillor Harvey, I think if we did recommend it to Civic, we would have to put it in their court as to look at what kind of events that they would be prepared to. It's only a suggestion coming from this committee.
Okay, thank you. I can still see a hands up from Brenda. Is that historical, or would you like them to come back, Brenda?
It was historic. I'm
Right.
not sure. Yeah. But I will say so. I'm not sure on Friday. Why do we raise a flag? We just accept. You know, do we have to? Does the whole town have to say that we accept it? Or you know, I don't get National Pride Day at all. You know, it's not a. Yeah, I don't understand that one. So I'm sorry, it's not a.
Okay.
Not something I would be thinking of.
Right, if I can put my two penny words in here, is that I tend to agree that White Ribbon Day is sort of, I'm not saying that it's not a valuable date, but it stands in the main list. And I'm going back down to the text that Mr. Brooks put down, is that other worthy dates of welfare and community health, like World Mental Health Day, etc., would be sort of celebrated just by putting them on media channels rather than making them a main date. So I think if you're going to put this in categories, then White Ribbon Day would fall within community welfare and prevention and etc. So we rather than mix them, I think we should ought to divide which ones are more of an heritage content and which ones are more of a community benefit, and then decide how we go about them. I'm open to suggestions. I'm not particularly how we go about this. I am a member of the Civic Committee, and I was there at the previous meeting. And this was discussed about different events that were going to be celebrated throughout the year. But I do understand that this kind of overlaps and should be worked in conjunction with them to decide what's going to be done and how, and if people need to be present, who's going to do it, and if any budgets or any cost to it. So this needs to be a bit more trimmed, a bit more defined in my opinion. But I'm hoping to have more suggestions before we pass on to the next, please. Right. silence. I would take it that I stunned everybody into silence. So that's that might be a good or a bad thing. We don't know. So how would councillors like to go about this? Should we put this to the civic committee for as a proposal for them to accept those dates and how they and a suggestion how they would like to go about this, or do this committee want to make a decision of any sorts on it? Any suggestions at all? No. So then I suggest to the secretary that we put these dates forward to be sent to the civic committee to get their feedback on it, to see if they accept those dates. And just with a little clause that we might or might not put White Ribbon Day included on it, and we include welfare dates and health benefit dates into this, or we should just keep them separate then, please.
Can I just pass the whole thing to the civic committee so that they can decide on it?
That's brilliant. Thank you for that, Chris. Thank you. Right, moving along then. You mentioned global date calendar. The dates, just go through my agenda here. And I think next we have the Rotunda posters, if I'm correct on the agenda. So Brooks would like to comment on this.
Okay, so the Rotunda posters, since our last meeting when we agreed to produce and sort of position these posters within the Rotunda, what we did is because, as Tom alluded to at the last meeting, we were waiting for some information. Things are now starting to reopen through the step 1 to 4 easement of restrictions. And I am sure once they do, as we discussed, we'll have more pertinent information, maybe even changing opening times and things like that. So I must admit, committee, I was loath to have the A2, sorry, which is the full window dimension produced and paid for. And what we did is we committed to laminating those posters that Tom showed the committee, which were the more generic posters of all the museums, all the open spaces, etc., and put those in just to sort of get something in the Rotunda, basically. So it is a short-term solution. I would say probably after May the 17th, when things actually really do start to reopen, hopefully we can produce those A2. And if there is any vacant window, the idea, as Councillor Jeremy put forward way back in February, I think it was, we could use these fillers to make sure that it just didn't look empty. There are lots of events that are being planned now, not just through us, but across the town. So hopefully the windows will be starting to fill up anyway. But that's the state of play at the minute. I don't know what committee feels about that.
Thank you for that. Any opinions from any of the other colleagues, councillors? I can see Councillor Cannon's got a hand up again, I would imagine. You want to
yeah, just to ask Dave, have we advertised on our website that people can put posters in there? Just a query, really.
Sorry, can you say that again, Brenda? The sound was a bit off.
Have we advertised to people that they can put posters in there? You know, because obviously during the shutdown, no one's been putting posters out or bringing any into the council. Have we advertised that they can do it?
The short answer to that, Councillor Cannam, is no. But as from the 17th of May, you know, our reception area will be permanently open to the public. At the moment, it's sort of restricted. They have to sort of knock and we. So yes, we will do that. And as I said, there's lots more events being planned and starting to be advertised. So people will want to get posters out. So we will make sure that happens.
Thank you. I've noticed, meanwhile, Councillor Wright has been with us for a little bit, so welcome. And we shall, oh, I think my phone's gone off, just a second. The perils of working at home. And we move along to the marketing report.
Sorry, Chairman, can I jump in there?
Sure, absolutely.
Sorry, I put in the chat. Just,
your hands up, apologies.
That's okay, not to worry. I was just going to say, David, firstly, you know, I'm really pleased to see some colour in the Rotunda. I think it looks an awful lot better than it did. So I certainly think it's a big step forward. And I think I'm right in saying that anything out of date now has been removed, so that's really encouraging. I've just had a quick look online, and for an A2 waterproof poster, it's £13. So I think for some of the more visible, sort of higher up, eye level type ones, I don't think the cost is excessive if we can, make sure we get some that are completely filling the space, because even with the A3 ones, there is still quite a grey border around the outside and it can still look a bit unsightly. So poster printing, always sort of amazes me just how cheap it is, really. So hopefully, the marketing budget can stretch to getting some of those posters ready sooner rather than later, because it is a very prominent location, and frankly, we need to do all we can to help sort of, liven up and improve the town centre. So, but really pleased with what's gone on so far.
Absolutely take your point, and yes, I agree. It is cheap. It's just me being the frugal person that I am. £13 is still £13, but it will change fairly quickly, Councillor Jeremy. So we will get onto that.
I appreciate that. I do understand that it's a prime location, so we want to be savvy. But we have the rotunda, we should make the most of it. And once we have it, just put the publicity there and get the word out as soon as possible, and get those posters up would be a good idea. Anybody else wants to comment on this, or should we proceed to marketing report, please? No? I'll proceed then. Marketing report, so doesn't require a decision, but is going to be comment by the Venues and Hospitality Coordinator. So if I pass the word, please.
All right, hello. So the marketing report was sent out earlier on. So to touch back on that, so one of the actions we've been working on has been the video projects yet again. I've been around the town speaking with assorted businesses in the town centre, making sure, because obviously they're all pretty rammed at the moment, so they're not able to do any interviews with us right at this moment, but they are more than happy to speak with us and get something sorted. That also works as a video project, and we can also get podcast stuff done at the same time, which is mentioned later on. But that is a relatively new development. So regarding the podcasts in the media suite, that'll work twofold. But with video projects, we also have done a video on the trim trail with a local personal trainer, which has received quite a lot of good positive attention on our Facebook, and we're looking to do more stuff like that, which generally sort of builds up the town and all the good things that we are doing in the town. And because I feel like that a lot of it kind of gets missed off, but by and large, the trim trail reception was very, very positive. So both the initial post and the video. The media suite is all but ready to go at this point. All we need is for the Guilder to be reopened so we can truly get on it. And as I said before, we've spoken with local businesses in regards to getting them in for the podcast as well, because that's a lot of easy content, and again, that builds up the town massively. The rotunda posters have already been touched on in the earlier item.
That's right, we already covered that.
Yeah, of course. And in regard, other than that, it's been the monthly observations, which we've had quite a large amount of posts which have received over 1,000 views or interactions. In a previous marketing report, I did mention in the December one, I believe it was, or even the January one, that I felt a lot of the high frequency of successful posts was courtesy of Christmas for the most part. However, the high frequency of good publicity has actually stuck around over the past couple of months, which leads me to believe that it's kind of more of a product of consistent use of our social media platforms.
That's good. We would think that would be a bit more seasonal, but if it's steady now, it means that people has really picked up the interest. The word is starting to spread, and people starting to hear into it, which is always a positive sign.
Of course, and then the last real point to touch on is, of course, as we are loosening the lockdown, we're getting more and more bookings come in for various events, whether they be ones that were previously postponed or cancelled, or being brand new ones that would be coming in regardless of the pandemic. So we'll be getting on are the marketing we were doing before the pandemic, such as the quarterly flyers as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Does any of the colleagues would like to comment on this? Do they have any questions regarding the report through the marketing at all? So any questions, can put them now or put them to Tom. I'm sure he'll do his best. Everybody's very quiet, so
I have my hand up, Carla.
I'm sorry, Brenda, missed it. Go ahead.
Just to say thank you very much to the team. I think they've actually worked really hard. I don't know whether it's worth doing a video because they won't see the dust, but worth doing the video of the Guildhall Carnegie because it looks absolutely splendid. And just to say, you know, you could point it out, and we will be opening on this date, and then people can. It might encourage people to come in on that date.
That is a good point, Brenda. But if I'm correct from the information available on the agenda, is that they are waiting for some more update photography from the results. Everything gets refurbished, nice and neat, looking pretty basically, and more appealing. And then they take some photographs and some imagery to use on the website and put it out. Is that right, Tom? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I don't know if David would feel free to jump in.
Can I just come in on that one?
Yeah,
it is an agenda item that we'll touch on in this meeting, which is about the reopening of the Guildhall. But just to pick up on just one other point, just to sort of sing the praises of Joe and Tom and all the rest of the team. Mark Webster always puts good social media content on the site. I did look at the analytics yesterday in terms of our main site, the Thetford Town Council Facebook, and over the last month we've had a reach of 27,000 plus, but the engagements of that are 11,500 engagements, which is excellent percentage of the total reach. So there, you know, we really are sort of hopefully turning a corner, and people are interested in some of the posts that we're doing. But it's all about content. So the rest of the guys in the team, you know, they're doing some great stuff and actually now taking the time and effort to highlight that to people, and people are interested. So that's brilliant.
Now, I endorse to that, and I thank the team for their efforts. Clearly, you know, they've been persistent with it, and the results are starting to show. We're getting much more visibility now than we have before. And now that things are reopened, there'll be a whole lot more events. I'm sure, I'm positive that things will increase. There'll be even more numbers coming through of people taking a look at what's going on in town, hopefully. So I'm just scrolling through here on my agenda, past the stats, which Tom just mentioned. Tom, would you like to mention anything else, or are you quite happy with that?
I believe that's it, unless anyone else has any questions for me.
Any comments from colleagues or anybody else, please, before we proceed? No? Very quiet. So next point in the agenda, to review the committee terms of reference. So I'll read out what we have as a headline. Is to review current committee terms of reference to reflect increased responsibilities of the change of the committee to Venues and Communications Committee. And this is something that's been discussed lately as we are now restructuring our committees, and Venue, Events and Marketing Committee will become Venues and Communications. And there are changes parallel to that that affect not only how we proceed, the remit of the work we do in this committee, but also the budgets. And today we are requiring a decision or a resolution is to approve the changes to the committee terms of reference, and is exactly regarding the new roles and responsibilities and the remit of the work of the committee as it's changing from VEM to VC. This committee will then lose the responsibility for town events, but as then gain and take control of the internal and external repairs and the upkeep of the venues, and also the use and future development of the marketplace. So I open the floor to any comments on this, or because this has been discussed on previous meetings, so we're now just wrapping up and making sure everybody is happy with this, or if there's any further comments or points to raise before we approve them and send them for full council, please. Comments. I can't really see the hands up. I'm trying to, so bury me. Councillor Jeremy, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of observations. I had a quick read through last night and it all seems fairly standard. Just in the role of the chairperson section, David, where it says there to agree and approve accuracy of committee minutes with committee officer. I wonder if that should say approve accuracy of draft committee minutes, because obviously the actual minutes are determined by the committee and full council. Really what the chairperson does is sort of review the draft minutes, and then they go on to be looked at. And I just wondered if there should maybe be a third bullet point there for the chairperson. I mean, really the most crucial role of the chairperson is to chair the meeting, and to make sure all speakers get time to talk, and you know, basically the flow. I can't give you some wording, but there must be some wording somewhere about making sure the meeting's conducted in an orderly manner and that sort of thing. But you know, that for me is probably the most important role of the chairman or chairperson. But other than that, it you know, it's all fairly standard and looks okay.
Thank you for that, Jerry. And I do notice that I'm filling in for the current chair of this committee now, and I have big shoes to fill. So I'm trying to do my best. So bear with me. But I would the colleagues would like a quick summary of the points of the terms of reference. Are they happy with the information that's been sent out and the terms of reference being laid out in the agenda as they are before we go for a decision on final comments? If not, I can just quickly point them out what the highlights are. So we have the roles of the chairperson, as Terry mentioned. We have the membership of the committee as part of the general town council aims and objectives. And the committee will have various yearly meetings. They are dated on the list on the agenda. I shall not need to point them all up, but if you guys go into the list, all the dates are there. Also, any additional agreed dates for urgent matters can be sort of put forward in case something arises throughout the year. Other than those dates, something else is necessary. There's always the option to put an extra date in there, which will be communicated in advance to all the councillors and the people involved. We have the purpose of the committee, which is really make decisions, the matters that affect the role and responsibilities of the council. Role of chairperson, role of the committee officer. Committee officer really, together with chairperson, is about dealing with the committee agendas, checking the accuracy of the minutes, and put them to the main council for approval. There's other points in here: to work closely with the chairperson, to respond to any correspondence, and it's disseminate information through media channels about any work or any information that arises from the committees and these meetings. And to discharge and oversee operational duties pertaining to work and the responsibilities of the committee, and any other delegated responsibility that the committee may find fit or may assign for it. That's the role of the committee secretary. There's a couple of points there, and when we have the responsibilities of the committee, which covers all the points that's been discussed in the previous meetings regarding the remit of the work we're going to do as the Venues and Communications Committee. There's highlights here is regarding the committee budget, recommendations for any additional funds required to cover those bits of work within the VNC committee. To discharge health and safety responsibilities of the committee, any actions agreed resulting of periodic inspections and to agreed reviews of risk assessments and working practices designated by the town council policy. So work within the policies of the council. So it's very generic, but it goes on to basically summarized, and you can go into detail and read the whole of the terms that as they're laid out on the agenda. They'll be available for the public viewing. It's really about the remits of the work, the budgets, the number of meetings, the responsibilities and offices and the shares, and etc. So it's not very different from what it was before, except for the changes that have been done to the remit and the areas that the committee will take responsibility for, which I mentioned before. And basically, I'll open the floor to any councillors that would like to comment on this. Any points? I would assume everybody had a chance to read through with more detail to this information. And if they're happy with it, very well, we shall approve them and pass them on to the town council as a proposal, as a recommendation. If there's any mentions or any issues, do please let us know before we proceed.
I put my hand up, Carla. It's Brenda.
Brenda, sure. Go on.
Yeah, in general, I think we should pass this, but I do need to think the committee needs to go back to Terry's point.
Okay, thank you for that, Brenda. Anybody mention Terry? Would you like to come back into it, or everybody's quite all right with that? Any other councils that haven't commented before? Any other mentions before we proceed at all? No, that seems very quiet. That might be a good thing. Okay, so should we then go back up to the initial proposal to make a resolution? Should we then put it to a voting to approve the changes to the committee terms of reference as they're stated on the agenda just mentioned prior? Should we require to go to a voting before we put them forward to full council? That'll be a question for the secretary. Would you like to take a vote on this and just put the resolution through?
Yes, we can do. Your point about amending the role of the chairperson, did you want to go any further on that?
Yeah, should we propose that we accept it with the two extra small clauses that Councillor Jeremy mentioned, which I think are quite valid within the remit of the work of the chairperson?
So what I can suggest is I will make those two changes suggested by Councillor Jeremy before we put this into the pack that will go to full council. So when you sit as full council, you will see those changes that have been suggested and approved.
That sounds reasonable. Thank you for that. Once those changes are done, we can just submit it for full council. I'm assuming this council is quite all right with that decision then, and we shall proceed.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Moving along. If I didn't lose track of this, we're now at the point of the Guild Hall operational and the reopening plan. Or am I jumped something? No.
Before we go on, I'm sorry, Chair. Could I just have a proposer and a seconder to adopt those new terms of reference, please?
Absolutely. Anybody wants to come forward to propose?
I will propose.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
I'm happy to second, Terry.
Okay, thank you.
Terry. Sorry to butt in.
That's that done then. Are you satisfied with that, Chris? Is that all done there?
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you. Right, so next point, the Guild Hall operational and the reopening plan is basically to receive an update regarding this issue. There is a little bit of information here in the agenda as well by our officers, by the VEM officer, and I'll pass the word if you'd like to mention anything about this, please.
Okay, so just the update is just broken down into various different areas. So internal works have been completed, apart from a couple of very small items that's now on the snagging list. Within the tender contract, the contractors have until the end of this month to complete those. So I have no real concerns about that not being to the level of acceptance. The external works, however, as most of you may have seen, there has been not too much activity since the turn of the year on this. There have been several setbacks with a couple of revisions to the original plans, and the contractors are having some issues in terms of deliveries of Yorkstone, which is the finished surface that we will use. So, as we've mentioned before, the red engineering bricks that you see on the site at the moment, they certainly aren't the finished article. So if you do hear people mention that, then you can reassure them that's certainly not the case. It may be that we have, even from the time of updating this report, we may have to move back the deadlines on there for another couple of weeks in terms of the completion. But I still have confidence that we will be able to reopen the venue week commencing the 21st, as long as government restrictions still apply or easements still apply. So, but again, it's messy work out there. Councillor Canham and Hollis came into the Guildhall yesterday to have a walk round, and one of the first things I did was apologise for the dust and things. It's just something we can't help. So it's not sensible to have major clean downs at this moment in time if there's still external work going on. So the cleanups will start to happen from the 4th of May, maybe a week later than that with the delay in the externals, but hopefully we'll achieve that by the 22nd of May. The interpretation displays, we are starting to work on some of them. Councillor Wright has been brilliant. Sorry.
So apologies. Is that there are quite a few points, and I appreciate you going through a few updates. But I think they have a hands up from Councillor Jeremy. I don't know if he wants to comment on the first part of your presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
No, sorry, I was happy to wait for David to finish. I can come in at the end. It's not time critical. Sorry.
I just thought maybe you want to intervene in a specific area, but go ahead, and we'll take any questions towards the end. Go ahead, Mr.
The interpretation displays again will start to materialise in earnest from the 4th of May to the 22nd, and that's actually physically installations. Councillor Wright, as I was about to say, has been working really well in terms of developing content for some of those displays. We're now going to the next stage of engaging the graphic designers and creators to put those into the final displays. We have a meeting actually set up with our SEEK partners on Friday, so we can start the ball rolling in terms of the former Guildhall Council Chamber, which will now be the Julep Sing Room, and part of the original Heritage and Lottery funding bid. They were one of our critical partners in terms of support for that room. The Guildhall Gallery upstairs, the former art gallery, is coming along quite nicely. We've stripped everything out. The floor's stripped. It should be sealed and finished next week. So again, we can start looking at putting in a timeline there. We're looking on the walls of the Guildhall Gallery to put a Thetford Heritage timeline around the walls. This room in the future will be used for visiting school groups, civic exhibitions. We're looking to do a civic exhibition as part of the Heritage weekend in September, the Open Days weekend. So again, a lovely space that will be a brilliant resource for the Town Council in the future. Again, you will have heard that we've spoken about 2 large wall vinyls that will go into the corridor, one opposite the door to the sing room, which will depict heritage activity on the marketplace, and the other, which is on the upper landing, where we have the embedded town crest, will again have content relating to the Thetford Borough Council and the old corporation. The large court, again, we have now secured, thanks to the easement of furlough, a couple of bodies that we were looking to purchase images from have now returned to work. So we have got all the images we need to create the big art wall acoustic panels that we've discussed in a previous meeting. So we can now engage with those suppliers to get to grips with those. So installation of interpretation is starting to move forward, so all looks good there. In terms of staffing, one of the elements of the Heritage Lottery Fund was to engage on a 2-year post a Heritage and Events Officer. That advert has gone out, and the deadline is Friday the 30th of April. We've already received a good number of applications, which is very encouraging, more than the last few vacancies that we've had in the council. So that's really encouraging that people want to apply for that role. And interviews will be the following week. And although it's a busy day on the 6th of May, I think we're highlighting Thursday the 6th of May to conduct those interviews. In terms of the tea room, I think we've re-looked at the tea room opening times, and we are going to go with 9:30 to 2:30, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Outside these dates, Wednesday and Sunday, it will become a valuable resource to deliver other events. Certainly, with the easement of lockdown, we may well be able to recommence our civic receptions. And the tea room, or that space, has been utilised in the past and will continue to do so. So countdown to reopening on the marketing. I think Councillor Canham alluded to it earlier in the meeting. should we not do release some pictures to show the work that we've done? And we will do a before and after shots. But again, as Chair did also allude, we just want to wait just a few more weeks until we get it to the kind of situation where it actually shows the members of the public what that room will actually look like. But we don't have to wait too long. In terms with the Guildhall and Events Officer, they will have to hit the ground running. In the civic meeting last week, we did discuss some heritage events that we're looking at. We're going to expand our Christmas selection of events, not just to focus on Christmas Light Switch On, which is the Friday, November the 26th, but we're also going to have a weekend on the 11th and 12th of December of Christmas markets and things like that, certainly on the Market Square on Sunday the 12th. Again, Tom suggested in his marketing report that we are going to start our podcast schedule, and I think we will commence that from Monday the 24th of May. So again, there will be a decent lead-in time, a whole month before we reopen the event. But that's going to be wider than just the Guildhall. We're going to engage with people like Mark Webster and his volunteers, the great work that Nick Thompson is doing at the cemetery, etc. Our litter picking teams and volunteers around the town, the River Group and all that kind of thing. So as a town council, as our brief of communications, we want to highlight all the good stuff that's happening, and we'll invite them in to engage within the podcast schedule. Again, Joe has been working on a specific Guildhall webpage because that space is going to be utilised in a lot more productive and positive ways than ever before. So we think that it should result in a dedicated web space, and he's working on that, and hopefully by reopening, or at least by the time we start in May, we can go live with that, so people will be able to book the space and see what they're looking at. And as also Tom said, we did start prior to lockdown. We started to do these quarterly flyers that advertised all the good stuff that we'll be doing. We are resurrecting those. So again, as shops and retailers reopening, we will go and visit them and ask them whether they're willing to display and promote our flyers, not just for events, but also the kind of things that are happening in the tea room. So any questions in terms of anything I've said, and I'm happy to focus on whatever you wish.
Thank you for the extensive presentation, Mr. Brooks. And Councillor Jeremy then. Please.
Thank you. Thank you for the report, David. It's really encouraging. There's, lots of content there, which is really useful. Just a couple of specific points. Really pleased to hear you talking about the external works and the bricks. Monday morning, I had a phone call from somebody, and I was actually able to sort of reassure them that it's all being done properly, and wait until the finished article before you pass judgment. So I think it's good to repeat that, Chinese whispers and all that. The second point I was going to make was just sort of thanks to Tom and co for the sort of cleaning around the back of the Carnegie. I've complained about that before at committee, so I'm just really grateful that that's been actioned. Makes such a difference to sort of see the Guildhall and sort of no rubbish floating around the Market Square and around the back. The only question I was going to ask about the external works, the window boxes with plants in and whatnot around the Guildhall always look, really impressive and a really sort of key part of the Market Square. Is that going to be impacted at all this year? I mean, I'm not sure where we're at in terms of the programme for hanging baskets and whatnot, but are we going to stick to what we normally do in terms of the display around the Guildhall?
Well, hanging baskets doesn't come within this committee brief, but that's not an excuse. And what I would say, actually, it's a really good point. And if necessary, the contractor that is in charge of not just planting, but watering those hanging baskets, and bearing in mind, we are talking about early summer when we reopen, taking away all the fencing and the containers, we want it to look as impressive as it has done in the past, because those hanging baskets do look absolutely brilliant. So what I will do is I will try and speak to the contractor, and I'm more than happy in the short term to give them a key to get into water and things. What we might have to do, I'll just have a word with the external works contractor. I think all the stone is being cut off site, so I don't think there's going to be a vast amount of dust and things, but the last thing you want to do is plant and then sort of almost suffocate them with dust. So I don't think it's going to be a dirty site as such. So excellent point, and I will make sure that the contractor can get access to plant and water those baskets.
That's a great point. We always want our areas to look as pretty and as blooming pretty as possible, and those baskets do complement the area quite well. Any other questions of any other colleagues that want to mention? I haven't heard from a few colleagues. Maybe they want to come in at any point. Councillor Wright, Councillor Crawford, Councillor Harvey. Everybody's very, very quiet in the moment. No, I think they're quite right then. We'll proceed.
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next point. Lovely, thank you. Next point in the agenda is the marketplace improvements, and it's also to receive an update regarding this. But from the agenda, it says there's no update to provide, as the working group hasn't managed to come together yet. So they don't have anything to report at the moment, but in this program, there will be a working group that will address and discuss the issues regarding the marketplace. Does anybody want to mention or make any comments regarding this before we proceed at all? No?
Can I just give you a quick update on that? I mean, there are 5 councillors on the particular working group, and I know it's a busy time. It's a busy time for everybody, and it is difficult, especially elections are coming up and things like that. But I did, as I said, Councillor Wright was in discussing some content for some of the displays. We did take the opportunity to go out onto the marketplace the other day and talk about a few ideas. I think what we will do is try to get people together, even if it's just for a quick meet on site, just to try and formulate what we would like to see. So I can go out and get indicative quotes for certain ideas and things like that. So hopefully in the forthcoming meetings, we will be able to provide a greater update.
Thank you for that. Hopefully if the group comes together, then they can come up with some ideas and they can proceed. I think Councillor Wright's hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Following on from David's comment, I think one of the things we did agree as a working group was to try and facilitate the electrical feed for market stalls and that. And then talking to David a couple of days ago, it seems to be that there's one of the stymied points is that we are moving from this committee to a different committee to who's going to be responsible for the electrical work, and also the actual costs associated with that. So I think that David needs to get those figures put in place, because I think we've agreed that we want to put in place the electrical feeds along there. And hopefully the new committee that will take on this work will be able to finance that. But obviously it is all subject to having the money to do these things, and it may be they have to be held back until we find the funding streams to do them. But I think there are some short-term works which have been agreed, such as removal of the bollards, replacement of pavement slabs, which David's got in hand. So I don't want to say that the group's not doing its work. It's come up to a decision which needs to be implemented, and then we probably need to meet again to go to the next stage and how we're going to try and finance that. So it's not that we're shying away from the job. I think we want to go on with it, but it's a little difficult with 2 committees straddling this time of the year.
Thank you for that, Stuart, and I appreciate that we are in a transitional period between committees and responsibilities, which makes it harder for any group to come together and come up with a fixed decision. And if the VEM officer can then just look into that installation of the electrical systems and everything that we discussed before would be good before the group gets together. I suppose the group would need a bit more definition about what can be done, and the budgets, like Stuart said, money is always an issue. Funds are hard to come by, and in order to look at what needs to be cost up, obviously they need to know what's the remit of what they can do. And with the committee changing hands, sort of being reshaped, we need to first define what's the limitations, what falls within this committee to do, for that working group to then, sit down and sort of brainstorm those ideas. This is my particular opinion anyways, but I'm open to any opinions from any other councillors. And I realize that Brenda's got a hand up. You want to come in, Brenda?
Yeah, it was just a quick one really, because we have within the last month or so discussed the trough. Well, does that trough now, as from May, come under the VEM Committee?
I'm sorry, Brenda, can you say that? What comes under?
The water trough, will that come under the VEM Committee?
That is a good question, Brendan. I personally don't know the answer, but I'm hoping the event officer can tell us if those things are going to be within our remit. See, things are not fully defined yet, so it's hard to tell exactly what's coming out within our remit and what's going to come out of it. So that's a good question.
I think what we agreed in terms of that, Councillor Callum, is the fact that we would, as a committee, take control over the internal, external repairs and maintenance of our venues. And in terms of the marketplace, even though it's not a physical venue, we did include that because it is associated so much with the Guildhall and the Carnegie. So yes, we do. Can I just also say that that area is moving on. The application to the authorities, the application to the authorities to get the water reconnected is underway. So that is moving on. So hopefully we'll see that in the foreseeable future, in the short term.
Right, so there's definitely within the remit of this, I wasn't 100% sure as with all the changes, but because it's an outside amenity, there's definitely within the remit of this committee and will continue to be within this committee then. And it's good to know that the water is being now connected and everything is on track. Any more questions regarding this issue at all from colleagues? Any comments?
Yeah, can I just jump in there?
Sure, Terry.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't intend to speak, but seeing as we've just spoke about the water trough, after we discussed it at ALP, I went and had a look at it actually, just to sort of refamiliarise myself with it. Just to mention, David, if anyone did have any time, at the base of it, there is an awful lot of rubbish gathered, and it just could do with a little bit of a clean in advance of it, being upgraded. I did go and have a look and sort of cleared up the sort of obvious bits of rubbish, but it's a nice feature, and it was looking a bit of a mess the other day when I went and had a look.
So when you say base, Terry, you mean under the main body of where the plants are? Yeah.
There's like a little sort of raised concrete edge, and I think it sort of traps stuff in it. That's the problem.
It does, and I think that's something that needs to be looked at almost on a daily basis, really. Yeah.
I suppose the image is all in the eye of the beholder, so small details do count, and if you keep things nice and tidy, I think they'll look much more appealing to any visitors and any people out and about. So it's just really a matter of keeping the maintenance and trying to keep in mind those small details and just tidy up once in a while. But it's good to point, Terry, so thank you for that. Next point, unless there's any other comments, we'll proceed. So next point is VEM agenda forward plan. To discuss and review, and the decision requires to approve the updates to the agenda forward plan. We have on the agenda, so basically a calendar of actions with the dates that they ought to be completed for, or a guideline for what they ought to be completed for. Does the VEM officer want to comment on any of those, or is all the other colleagues quite satisfied that they've seen this information presented?
All I would say is in the first under April this meeting, so the marketing operation marketing plan we've just covered, and yes, it's very sort of generic at this stage. In terms of the marketplace improvements, all I would say is although there wasn't much detail at this meeting, you can see it also on May. So it's not going to slip off the radar. It's something we will continue to go back to just to make sure that we're on track and it's moving forward in the right way. So it's not something we're going to lose after today's meeting. That one's back. The open spaces, I talked to Councillor Robinson, the chair, and we are looking to visit most of our open spaces early next week. to try and put together the commercialisation report. So those things are underway. I think the point of this agenda item, which comes up at every month, is there anything else in June, July, August and beyond that we seem to think that we should start paying closer attention to?
All right, thank you. So any of the colleagues then, any the ability of foresight and want to put any advices on anything ahead of May, basically, apart from the ones already mentioned for the next couple of months. Any other points or any other points of action that you have to include, do let us know so they can be included on this item of the agenda. Any other comments from any other colleagues? Or are they quite happy with this calendar?
I'm quite happy at present.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy too.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So we'll leave it as it is. And if there's any other suggestions, you can always communicate and sort of email the VEM officer to be included and put forward for the next dates, for the next meeting. So next point of the agenda then, proceeding, it will be community engagement. And that's to discuss and agree any consultation media release required to approve any agreed communications. So is there any communications, any points that you want to encapsulate, that you want to summarize for us to put forward to the public, apart from all the extensive communications that our officers and coordinators already sort of laid out for us from the work they're doing on the background with all the marketing and everything's going on? But is there any other points additional that anybody wants to mention that should be included or highlighted by any means? No? I guess not. Very quiet. Everybody's happy with that. We proceed. The next point and the last point of the agenda for today is the committee officers update. So it's to update any information that came through since this agenda was released for this meeting. It doesn't require attention. VEM officer, anything left?
There's nothing to update on that point, Chair.
So everything is included, and we covered all the points of the agenda for today. Is there anybody who wants any comments before we close this meeting then? No?
No, thanks very much, David and Tom and Joe, if he's there.
So thank you, councillors and officers, for your attendance and your participation this afternoon. With this, we conclude